you guys? The Curious Owl here, and today I'm going to be sharing with you guys my February 2020 wrap-up. So I'm going to be really quick with this because I'm just getting through so many books in any given month that it's just going to take me forever to go through and talk about all of them. So really what I'm going to do is just give you guys my stats and the ratings of each of the books I read and gave, and kind of leave it at that because I feel like otherwise I'm just going to talk for way too long about some of these books. And some of them I have done reviews for that you can go see, particularly my Morganville Vampire reread series. So I will leave my reviews for those down in the description below for you. So this month I read a total of 2,126 pages of physical books and listened to 131 hours, 8 minutes, and 24 seconds worth of audiobooks. I read 5 physical books, no ebook, 13 audiobooks, 5 books were off my personal library, and 13 were borrowed. I read a total of 19 books, but I DNF'd one of them. So the first audiobook I read this month was Library of Souls by Ransom Riggs, which I gave a 5 out of 5 stars. Absolutely loved it, and I'm very excited to read book 4. Then I listened to The Shack by William Paul Young, which I gave 4 stars. I was greatly surprised by this one, how much I enjoyed it, because I'm not one usually for like theologically based stories, but this one was very thought-provoking in a lot of ways, and I really enjoyed a lot of it. The next book was Where'd You Go, Bernadette by Maria Semple. Another book I wasn't sure how I was going to really like, but ended up actually enjoying quite a bit. But it did make me mad a lot of times because I felt so bad for the main character of the story, and I felt like mom just kind of abandoned her for no reason. The next book I listened to was Norse Mythology by Neil Gaiman, which I gave 4 out of 5 stars. It was very enjoyable, did really like the renditions of these stories, but some of them were a little confusing here and there for me, and I think I might have gotten them better if I read the book physically. The first physical book I read was Eragon, the first book in the Inheritance cycle by Christopher Paolini, and I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. I was really happy to finish this book and really enjoy it because now I understand why so many of my friends growing up really liked this series, and I'm really excited to read the rest of the books in the series eventually. The next audiobook I listened to was The Good Daughter by Karin, which I gave a 5 out of 5 stars to. I really loved that story from beginning to end. It was a roller coaster, but was really enjoyable. The next book I read was Cop Town by Karin, which I gave 5 out of 5 stars to as well. This was also another enjoyable read, and I'm finding that I am really liking a lot of Karin Slaughter's books, and she may be one of my most favorite thriller writers ever besides James Patterson. The next physical book I read was Bite Club by Rachel Caine. This is book 10 in the Morganville Vampire series, and I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars, and I did do a review for this book, which I will leave in the description. The next book I listened to was Out of the Easy by Ruta, Septeys, which I gave a 4 out of 5 stars to. I was not really sure what this book was about, but I really liked how the story went, and I loved a lot of the historical aspects that were played into the story that I think really made the world feel very rounded out, and it makes me kind of want to go to New Orleans a lot more now because of some of the descriptions of the French Quarter. The next physical book I read was Last Breath by Rachel Caine, which is book 11 in the Morganville Vampire series. I also gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars, and I also reviewed this one, which you can go check out in the description. The next book that I listened to was Zoo by James Patterson and Michael Ledwidge. I really did not like this book. I gave it 2 stars. I'm surprised I even finished it, to be completely honest. I just found it to be really annoying, and I didn't understand anything of what was going on, and I just didn't really seem to care the entire time I listened to this book. The next book I listened to was The Queen of the Tearling by Erika Johansen. I also gave this one a 2 out of 5 stars, and this one I felt like it was more because I just didn't understand anything of what was going on in the story. Like, I would understand some bits and pieces here and there, but I think I would have to read this one physically to, I think, fully understand the story. So this is one I will likely come back to with a different set of eyes on it. The next book that I listened to but ended up DNFing was the Shannara Trilogy by Terry Brooks. This is a high fantasy story, and the audiobook that I had specifically had 3 of the stories in one, and I just couldn't really focus on this very much. I think this is one of those high fantasies where I really would have to like be involved with it physically and reading it in front of my eyes. I just don't think audiobook would be the way to go for these older high fantasy stories. The next audiobook I listened to was Cold Cold Heart by Karin. This is a short story of hers, and I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars. This one I just didn't feel like I really was satisfied with a lot of what was going on. I felt like it was just not as gripping as I thought it was going to be, and I thought the story was going to go in a direction that the synopsis led me to believe, and it just was very disappointing in terms of what I thought the story was going to end up being. The next physical book I read was Black Dawn by Rachel Caine. This is book 12 of the Morganville Vampire series and was my February read for the month. I ended up giving this a 4 out of 5 stars as well, and I also did review this one. The next audiobook I listened to was They All Fall Down by Rachel Housel Hall. This was incredibly disappointing, and I gave it a 2 out of 5 stars. This was essentially supposed to be a And Then There Were None retelling, which is the story that was written by Agatha Christie, which I actually read a couple months ago, might have been in January, might have been at the end of 2019, and I loved And Then There Were None, so I was really excited to see that this was a retelling. But it wasn't even so much a retelling as I think of just a rehashing of the story with just different characters that fit the time period better. I felt like I just wanted so much more from this, and I wanted there to be so much difference between this and the original. But this just felt like it was such a real carbon copy of And Then There Were None, and I was really disappointed with that. The next book I ended up listening to was The Siren by Kira Cass. This I gave a 3 out of 5 stars to. I feel like Kira Cass is one of those authors where she probably flourished a lot in the time she published, like the Selection series and The Siren, but they're just books that I don't think age very well when it comes to what we see now within contemporary young adult literature. And I just feel like she writes kind of the same things over and over again, and I don't know. I mean, it was enjoyable for the time I read it. I just don't think it was groundbreaking by any means. The next audiobook I listened to was Judge and Jury by James Patterson and Andrew Gross. I did try to read this audiobook in November of 2019, the month where I had a complete burnout with audiobooks, and this was unfortunately one of the books that fell to the wayside because of it, but I did re-listen to it and ended up giving it a 5 out of 5 stars because I really loved this story because it provided a really interesting perspective of this case that was going on. And from beginning to end, I was gripped, and I felt like I really connected with one of the main characters especially. And I felt so many times my heart break, especially with how the story goes for one of the main characters. And I just really was hoping that by the end, things would turn out okay. And it does, but it took a lot to get there, but it was so worth it to me. And the last book I completed this month was Let It Snow by John Green, Maureen Johnson, and Lauren Miracle. This is a collection of 3 short stories, all dealing with characters from the same town around the time of Christmas, basically Christmas Eve going on to like a couple days after Christmas when there's a huge snowstorm that happens. Overall, I liked each of these stories individually. I kind of gave them either a 4 or a 3 star. It basically averaged it out to be closer to a 4 star than a 3 star for me. So I really liked this story a lot. I felt like all the stories connected very well. The one I think I will say I enjoyed the least was probably the last story by Lauren Miracle. I gave that one a 3 star as opposed to the ones that John Green and Maureen Johnson wrote, which both got 4 stars. I just felt like Lauren Miracle's story, which was called The Patron Saint of Pigs, I just don't feel like I really connected with the main character a lot. I kind of felt like she was self-absorbed in a lot of ways, like she's described in the story, but I also felt like there was so many points where it was unnecessary for her to be called self-absorbed, but I don't know, I just didn't know how to quite feel about her in a lot of ways, and I felt like that the end of it was overall pretty cool, but was kind of too Hollywood-esque for me to feel like it was a real story, and I don't know, I just kind of felt like it was iffy for me, that last one. But the first 2 stories by John Green and Maureen Johnson I really liked. They did have their own issues, I think, in some ways, but were overall very enjoyable and was a really light and fluffy read, considering that a lot of what I had read in the last several months has been a lot of death and destruction. It was just a nice change of pace, I think. Those are all the books I ended up reading in February of 2020. Let me know what you guys ended up reading and if you participated in any readathons over the course of the month. I personally did not. As many of you know, I was going on a bit of a break for YouTube and have been kind of posting less and less. But the next couple weeks are probably going to be a little bit more video heavy just because I've got a lot of videos coming out, with it being the end / beginning of a new month, and I have Anathon going on, and then at the end of March I have the Royal Weekender, so I'm really excited to see kind of how this month goes, but I'm also going to make sure I don't take too much into account with my channel and really just focus on making sure I do what is best for myself in terms of my mental health and my stress level and things of that nature. But do expect videos to be coming out more often again for the next probably week or so. So anyway, thank you guys so much for joining me in this video. If you guys did enjoy it, please do give it a big thumbs up. And if you're not already and you'd like to be, hit that button down below and subscribe to become an owlet in our flock. And I will see all of you guys in my next video. Bye guys!